And Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz slammed the targeting of conservatives in the military, too. Listen.
He presented scholarship on Marxism and critique of critical race theory, which is an ideology that trains our service members to hate one another based on identity. And then I think to myself, well, maybe it's just that Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeier was relieved of his command because he was being overly political, using the military to make a political point. And gosh, then I thought about the last lieutenant colonel that we seem to give a lot of attention to here, and it was Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who precisely used his role in the military to be able to advance a political impeachment.
Join me now with more. Representing Florida's 1st Congressional District, Congressman Matt Gaetz. Congressman, thank you for joining me. And Congressman, thank you for pointing out the obvious here. It looks like this was a political hit job. They didn't like what this lieutenant colonel was saying. And he was pointing out the obvious, that there's serious issues with critical race theory. We know, I would argue that it's actually racist, and this is infiltrating the military, and it needs to stop.
Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeier is a patriot. He should be celebrated, not demoted and relieved of his command. And on the Armed Services Committee, we will not stand for it. We're calling for the Secretary of Defense to come in and answer questions about this wokeification of the military that's harming our country, Stephanie. Our military should focus on building our capabilities, winning wars, protecting our nation. They shouldn't be trying to move this social justice warrior, critical race theory agenda instead of focusing on their core mission. But when you look at who the Biden administration has put in senior positions in the military, it's easy to see why this is happening. They're focused more on critical race theory, which teaches our service members to hate each other, than they are on the actual mission of the Department of Defense.
And you're so right. So they're saying the argument is like, oh, well, we can't have politics in the military, and what he's saying is too political. Okay. But what about everyone else? And as you pointed out, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, very political, and even just the latest military recruiting ads, full of politics.
I'd rather our military be capable than woke. I spent a lot of time on military bases, and with a commanding officer recently, I learned that this targeting of service members for forwarding the wrong joke, liking the wrong meme or tweet, was actually really impacting morale. It was impacting morale even more than some of the deployments. It was impacting readiness to a great extent because people are so concerned about their careers. I don't believe anyone should be targeted and removed from the military because they're a Democrat or an independent or they don't hold my politics, but I would also ask that we not try to purge the DOD of true patriots. So many of your viewers, Stephanie, know that the political left has taken over so many of the agencies in Washington, the Department of State, the Department of Justice, and, the EPA, the Department of Labor, and the Department of Defense was one last institution that the left had not totally taken over, and it's clearly a focus of the Biden administration, and that's why Republicans have to speak out and we have to stand in solidarity with patriots like Matthew Lohmeier, who are experiencing this real time and are blowing the whistle.
And I was talking about the recruitment ads. We have a video of that, and Twitter's exploding over a Russian army recruitment video, and then they compared that to our latest video that came from the military. As you pointed out, a lot of wokeism going on here, and we have the video roll tape.
Новой жизни. Что ты знаешь о себе? На что ты способен? Вопросы могут остаться без ответов, но разве ты сумел знать себя? Познать границы своих возможностей? К черту границы, а без боя нет победы. Но на самом деле, главный враг – это задача выследить врага, догнать его, превзойти, стать лучше, чем он.
It begins in California, with a little girl raised by 2 moms. I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age. To marry my other mom. With such powerful role models, I finished high school at the top of my class. And after meeting with an Army recruiter, I found it. A way to prove my inner strength. I'm U.S. Army Corporal Emma Malone Lord, and I answered my calling.
So people took to Twitter and they jokingly said, like, pick your fighter. And obviously that Russian ad was pretty intense. And I remember the old military ads that we used to have, and it showed a lot of strength and everything else. And these new woke ads are talking about things that are a distraction. They're not talking about who's the best. And you have to think of the role of the military. This is to defend our country. And they have, like, cartoons and talking about, like, gay weddings. And what does that have to do with the military?
Remember, the Army had the best slogan in America, be all you can be. And then they shifted off of that to the Army of One. And now it's to the point where our military and our intelligence community are recruiting people based on their own self-indulgence rather than based on the work they can do. I have to brush up on my Russian, but I didn't hear anybody in the Russian ad disclaiming their cisgender privilege. They were focused on recruiting spies and operators and thugs, and we should be focused on recruiting patriots, not just those who are so hyper self-involved that they don't see how meaningful this patriotic service can be if applied correctly and if shepherded judiciously.
Exactly, and it's really confusing. Again, the marketing and the strategy of these recruitment videos. I want to know who's responsible for those. So hopefully, you guys will get to the bottom of that at some point. Now, I wanted to ask you: you're traveling around the country. Is America First tour, and you're going to be in Arizona tomorrow.
That's right. Marjorie Taylor Greene and I will be in Mesa, Arizona tomorrow. Folks can go to mattgaetz.com/rally to reserve a ticket. And we are focused on election integrity. So many of these issues we talk about, whether it is the right regulatory climate or the right tax climate or border integrity, none of those happen without election integrity. And we want to stand in solidarity with the Arizona State Senate President, working to get a clean, fair audit of the vote in Arizona. And our hope is that this isn't just a focus on the past, but that it will inform on good reforms and policies that we can pursue all over the country to ensure that the vote has integrity and that someone actually casting a vote intends to do that.
Yeah, and the Arizona audit continues. What's the latest revelation, if you will? I mean, what's standing out to you?
The good news in the Arizona audit is, despite some of the consternation between Maricopa County and the auditors, they now do have all of the base voter file data information in order to run a correct audit. The bad news is that the Biden Justice Department is trying to stop it. Dr. Pamela Karlan, who you'll remember is one of the very partisan impeachment witnesses the Democrats brought in, is now the head of the Civil Rights Division at the Biden Justice Department, and she's sending letters to try to stop an audit. If anything, the Justice Department should be trying to vindicate people's voting rights and civil rights by ensuring that the elections were conducted fairly. They shouldn't be trying to intimidate the Arizona State Senate in their work. And so we have called on the Biden Justice Department to stand down, and we're going to Arizona tomorrow to stand up for the people who want to make sure that we have free, fair, and verifiable elections.
I found it really surprising how critical some folks were, especially the media, local media in Arizona, were just about this audit in general. I mean, don't they want to know? And also, depending on the results, I mean, we should all know the truth and figure out what's going on there. And they're just so opposed to everything. And you look at even just all the articles that have been written on it, that's just totally negative, hardly any information on it. You'd think these reporters would have some sort of curiosity.
Yeah, typically the press actually wants to know what happened unless it doesn't fit with the narrative of the mainstream media. And they want to box everybody into some sort of, revenge effort where it's all about the 2020 election. And that simply misses the broader point. We have to know what worked well and what didn't work well in the last election in order to continue to protect the next election. And so I think that we can have a very prospective, positive view on election integrity that ensures that people whose votes are counted actually intended to cast those ballots. And no one should fear an audit. No one should fear a review of the information. And it is very suspicious that the Biden Justice Department and their allies in the America Last mainstream media are doing everything they can to blunt our review of the base materials, the underlying evidence, the ballots themselves. And look, it may be that there was absolutely nothing wrong, that the election in Arizona was perfect, and if that's the case, no one should be standing in the way of a factual review.
All good points, Congressman. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate being on.